Hello friends, welcome to another Sunday service. If today is your first time tuning in with us, my name is Trevor and I will be your guide for today's message. All I ask is please keep your hands and your feet inside the ride at all times. We're going to have a fun time today. We're going to look at a few random thoughts, take a few random ideas, and hopefully by the end of the video, they don't seem so random. Hopefully we can kind of put some flow and some connection between these thoughts this morning. While we do that, those random thoughts, I know there's probably some people saying like, what are we talking about today? Well, today we are going to talk about minivans. Yeah, love them. Minivans. We're going to talk about alternative wisdom. We're going to talk about butterflies. Yes. We're going to talk about furniture moving wives. And we're going to talk about Jenga blocks. All right, so it's going to be a fun time. I told you it was random, and let's see what we can do in the next 10-15 minutes, all right? Let's start things off with a little Biblia today. We're going to read Romans 12, verse 2, and that says, "And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect." Now, some of us probably have heard that verse before. Maybe some of us have never heard that verse before. But today, we're going to try and look at it in a new perspective. Try and look at it in a new way. But before we get to that, we'll get to that a little later on. But for now, I want to chat a little bit about minivans. Now, in the Gudrie household, we have gone through some life-changing events, some life-changing transitions in the last few months, and that's not even really including a world pandemic. We have brought home our second child the last few months. In August, we brought home our second child, and we have also purchased a minivan. It's another addition to the family. Now, those things are actually deeply connected because our family grew before our vehicle grew. Now, a little context might be needed. Before the minivan life, we were driving a Mazda 6. And something happens when you're driving a Mazda 6 and you have children that when you're on vacation, you actually have to choose, do we bring food or do we bring the stroller? And it's in that moment when you're staring at a packed trunk and realizing that we are only halfway packed, that you realize things tend to work until they don't. I'm going to say that again. Things tend to work until they don't. And I know that probably doesn't sound like groundbreaking. It's not a groundbreaking statement. It's maybe not a life-changing statement. But the more that you sit with that truth, the more you understand it applies to so many aspects of our life. And we all come to that moment, but I don't know if we all choose change before change chooses us. Now, one of the reasons I think for that is we live in a current culture that celebrates certainty over mystery, that celebrates answers over questions, and it celebrates hard lines over the exploratory pathways of the divine. There's this irony that's seen when we read the Bible and we see religious people and the Pharisees who literally studied God, who spent their entire lives looking through the scriptures and looking how to understand and to quantify God. Yet when God in flesh was standing and breathing in front of them, they missed him. And it kind of reminds me of butterflies. Since I've had children, I have noticed butterflies more. Now, if you take anything from today's message, take that. Notice butterflies more. One, it's just good for the soul, I feel like. And two, it means that you've slowed down enough, you've slowed your life down enough to see and to recognize beauty. There are people who study butterflies, who study, they know the ins, the outs, they know the knowledge, the proper terminology about butterflies, and they take butterflies and they pin them down so that they can study them. But there are aspects of a butterfly that can only be experienced in its natural environment. There's aspects and understanding about butterflies that can only be seen and be experienced as you see it flying as it was created to do. And I would suggest that the same is true for Jesus and for the understanding of who God is that we can study and we can understand the rules and the regulations, we can understand the hard lines, and we can understand things about God. But there is an aspect of God who you just need to experience in his natural environment. Not pinned down, but allowing him to be free, allowing the Spirit to be free. One way of looking at it is when we come to understand and we come to explore who Jesus is. Often we're met with forms and structures. And forms and structures are not bad. They're actually meant to guide us into the experience of Spirit. Now the issue that happens is when we marry ourselves to forms and structures, or we get those things out of order and we place more importance on the form and the structure than we do on the Spirit, the experience of God, what we've always been created for. And when I say marry, it makes me think of my wife. And my wife is amazing. She's absolutely amazing. She's on a whole nother level. And I'm not just saying that because she's in the room with me. I'm saying that because I have not met somebody who views the world with such an amazing perspective, who lives their life with such intentionality. And those things mean that she likes to move the furniture in our home. I know you're like, where was this going? Those things actually lead us to this point. She likes to move the furniture in our home. Now she moves it for different purposes, maybe for to create better function or functionality in our home, for design purposes. I think sometimes she just moves it because it's just we had nothing planned that day. We just wanted to change things up a bit. And when we were first married, those requests to move the furniture were met with huffs and sighs and not again. And I'm glad to say that over 5 years of marriage, there's significantly less huffing happening on those requests. But what I've realized is that when she would request to move the furniture, I would get frustrated because I was actually married to form and structure in that moment more than I was married to my breathing and living wife. That I had become attached and I was holding on tightly to the form of my living room more than I was holding on tightly to the spirit of my wife. And I think it's just a reminder for us is that those who hold on to things tightly will feel like things are ripped away when they don't work. But those who hold on to things loosely will feel like it's a great exchange when things stop working. That's always been the plan of God. Not that things would stop working and it would feel like something was ripped away from us, but that when things stopped working, it was actually an invitation to an exchange. We were moving from one thing to another. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians 5:17 that the old things have gone and the new things have come. And this is always the plan of God, that there would be times where old things would stop and we would move from old to the new. But we actually have to be willing to let go of the old so that there's an exchange, so that new life can happen in our lives, that newness could happen and move us from a past or a present into our future. It kind of reminds me of the game Jenga, right? You've got this tower of blocks and they're all lined in a specific way and you're taking blocks out and putting them on top, and all of a sudden this moment comes where you pull it's like just the right block to pull, and you're ready to pull it out, and as you pull it out, that tower comes crumbling down. And in that moment, there's usually two different kinds of people. There's the person who loses and is so angry that they throw the blocks across the room. Then there's the other person who views the tower crumbling as simply an opportunity to play the game again. And my invitation to us today is to view the moment when things stop working, not as losing the game, but as the opportunity for a new game to begin. That moment where our perspective of when things in our lives have stopped working, they've no longer carried the capacity for the life that we're wanting, the life that we're moving into. That we don't get frustrated and anger and hold on too tightly to what once was, but to approach life with this expectation of that when something stops working, it's because there's something new waiting for us. And whatever that is, whether that's your beliefs, whether that's your understanding of who God is, our understanding of the world and our role in it, there's an invitation to let go of what is no longer working and to grab on to what is next. Now, some of you are probably super frustrated right now because you're like, when are we going to get to Romans 12? You said we were going to come back to it, and I'm at the end of the video, and we still haven't talked about it. Well, don't worry, we're there, okay? We've come full circle, Romans 12. Now, Romans 12 said something specific that I want to pull out. It said that you are meant to renew your mind. Now, that renewing of your mind, it was not a singular act. It's a plural, it's a continuous act. It's not just renewing my mind on Monday, but renewing my mind daily, renewing my mind from moment to moment. And the reason why it's not just a singular act is because we are not in the process of arriving, but we're in the process of a journey. And the journey has always been about this, that we are communing with an endless God. And if He is endless, then His story is endless. And His characteristics are endless. And His truths and the mystery of who He is and who we are is endless. And so if we've found that we have arrived at a place and we've held on tightly to what we already know, then we've actually forfeited the knowledge and the truths of tomorrow. I want to invite you today to look and see what is no longer working in our lives. And not to hold on tightly to beliefs and to views of the world and of God, but to allow Spirit to move in our lives and to lead us into all things, all truth. He has invited us into that kind of life, into that kind of journey. May you have peace and grace and love all the days of your life.